Hello, and welcome to my Bayonetta Speedrun tutorial. In this video, I will be covering some of the major boss fights for the Bayonetta New Game Normal any% speedrun. These will be the Iustitia bosses, as well as Boulder and Jubelius. Some bosses, such as Fortitudo, for example, appear multiple times in the game, but this video will be discussing the whole chapters in the game that are dedicated to boss fights. Jeanne could technically also be classified as a boss, but I will be preparing a separate video about her fights in the future, since in the speedrun her fights are quite unique and different. Since the Bayonetta speedrun has an element of RNG, bosses can indeed be very mean. However, I hope this video helps. Enjoy! Before I start explaining the main boss fights, I'm going to give a brief description of the main weapons we use against them. The Shuriba sword, which is a katana weapon. You will see the sword used against almost every boss that I will be talking about. The Shuriba sword is obtained by collecting the golden LP after defeating the two beloveds in Chapter 2. Exchanging this LP at the shop will give you the Shuriba sword. Onyx Roses, which is a set of shotguns. The Onyx Roses can be obtained by collecting the golden LP that can be found in Chapter 1 just after defeating the beloved in verse 4. Taking the LP to the gates of hell will allow you to obtain this weapon. In the speedrun, we go to the shop after Chapter 2 and collect the Shuriba sword and Onyx Roses at the same time. The Durga. The Durga is a set of claw-like weapons with the elements of fire and lightning. This weapon's LP is divided into 3 pieces in Chapter 5, which are collected and then exchanged at the shop in the same chapter before Jeanne's fight. In the speedrun, we only use the fire element and wear the Durga on the feet, and for bosses, the Durga is only used on Temperantia and Lumen Sage to perform a high damaging exploit combo. Lieutenant Colonel Kilgore. The Kilgore is a set of rocket launchers that in the speedrun we equip on the feet for late game. This weapon's golden LP is divided into 3 parts in Chapter 9, which are collected in the speedrun and exchanged at the shop after Chapter 13. We use this weapon in the Lumen Sage's boss fight. There are 6 main bosses in Bayonetta that will be discussed. They are Fortitudo, Temperantia, Iustitia, Sapientia, Boulder, and Jubelius. Let us start with the first one, Fortitudo. The first boss that you face is in Chapter 4, the Cardinal Virtue of Fortitude. For Fortitudo's boss fight, you want your weapons to be set up like this. We are going to have the Shuriba sword on the hands of the first weapon set, Onyx Roses on the feet of the first weapon set, and Onyx Roses on the hands of the second weapon set. Then just Scarborough Fair on the feet. There are going to be a few different moves that we use against Fortitudo. The first one and main one being Bullet Climax. Bullet Climax is a technique that you get at the start of the game, which you can perform by spinning the joystick around and then pressing either the punch or the kick button repeatedly. This can be performed with the hands or the feet. Bullet Climax with the legs has a few extra frames of start off, but fires a lot more shots if you're really fast at mashing. So whenever we do Bullet Climax, we want to make sure that we're mashing as much as possible. Extra startup of the legs can also move your way. As you can tell, Bayonetta moves ever so slightly, whereas in Arm Climax, she will stay still. These are things to take note of when fighting Fortitudo. With the Shuriba sword, we are going to be doing this one move that you will see often against the next few bosses as well. It is an upward slash with the sword. It is performed by pressing the lock-on button, holding the joystick backwards to the opposite direction Bayonetta is facing, and then pressing the punch button. One thing to take note of is when doing this move, is to understand that when doing these slices, in order to stay on the ground, you will need to press the attack button in a certain rhythm. If you spam the button, you will get lifted from the ground and be in the air. For the most part, you will be wanting to stay grounded when using these slices with the sword. We are also going to be using punch kick punch combo with the sword by simply pressing punch, then kick, then punch again. When Fortitudo's boss fight starts, he can decide to do one of three things. 1. He could decide to do a bite, which is what you hope for. 2nd, he could breathe fireballs, which is manageable. And 3, he could decide to do a tail swipe across the platform that you stand on at the beginning. If Fortitudo does a bite, dodge the bite to activate Witch Time and bullet climax into his face. If Fortitudo does a fireball, I usually dodge to get Witch Time and then do punch kick punch combos with the sword. If Fortitudo decides to do a tail swipe, well, you just have to dodge. The first objective of Fortitudo's boss fight is to do enough damage to his heads to then trip him like so. After doing so, you want to use Bullet Climax with the Onyx Roses to hit Fortitudo with a lot of damage. When he receives a certain amount of damage, his health will be capped, and he will proceed to fly away to sit above the Colosseum. He will breathe fire and lava will emerge from the floor. When he does this, you just want to keep moving. There is a bit of button mashing, try and mash as much as possible. It is recommended to find a hand position that is suitable for you to do so. Keep in mind not to damage your hands either and to take care of your hands during the Bayonetta speedrun, as there is quite a bit of button mashing. In the second part of Fortitudo's fight, you want to position yourself in such a way that you will be able to dodge Fortitudo's head when he breathes fire, to get Witch Time. When in Witch Time, bullet climax and hit him with a lot of bullets to the face. After doing so, I like to dodge back and then do a punch kick punch combo with the sword. The Wicked Whip from the sword will hit Fortitudo in the face and he will get tripped to the floor. Get into a good position close to his face and bullet climax into it. Once Fortitudo receives the damage, he will fly up again, and the next part will be similar to as before. For phase 3, Fortitudo will fly up and you will verse him in a different setting. Fortitudo can do a variety of different moves in this phase. The ones you will see commonly in the speedrun are a head bash, a dive under the platform, a flying claw attack with his legs, spikes, and him just flying away and staying away from the platform. If Fortitudo is away from the platform, punch kick punch combo with the sword, as the Wicked Weaves will reach him. If Fortitudo is close to the platform, use the Shuraba upward slashes to his face, and bullet climax with the Onyx Roses in the air with the hands if he decides to summon spikes below you. The main moves you want from him are moves that make him close to you, giving you opportunities to use the Shuraba slashes to his face and to do damage. We don't want him flying away, but as I've said before, the bosses in Bayonetta have RNG. You just have to try and work with what you get. So that was the first boss of the speedrun, Fortitudo. Now let's go on to the next one, Temperantia. The second boss fight can be found in Chapter 7, the Cardinal Virtue of Temperance. The way we want our weapon set up for the second boss fight is like this. We want the Shuraba sword on the hands of the first weapon set. We want the Onyx Roses on the feet of the first weapon set and Onyx Roses on the hands of the second weapon set. However, for the second boss, we are going to be having Durga on the feet. There is an exploit in Bayonetta that we are going to be using for this boss fight. Whenever Bayonetta has a firearm on the feet of one weapon set and Durga on the other, during the kicking animation of a quadruple punch and then kick combo, if you swap to the weapon set with the firearm or gun, Bayonetta can fire bullets from her feet during that animation, creating a high damaging combo. We are going to be using this for quite a few parts in Temperance's boss fight. You want to use the Durga exploit on his arms to hit him with a lot of damage, firing the Onyx Roses bullets from the feet. If Temperance does some sort of firing move where he fires bullets from either his arms or his eyes, use Afterburner kicks up his arm to get out of range of them to then perform the exploit above. After he gets hit with enough damage, he will do a punch giving you a prompt to crawl up his arm. Run up his arm in panther form and use the Shuraba upward slashes to penetrate the capsules on both of his arms. One thing to take note of is you will only get the climax prompt if you are on the ground. Try and stay on the ground when using the Shuraba. This will need to happen twice for both of his arms to be ripped off. One cruel thing Temperance can do is he can decide to punch you. If he decides to punch, do not dodge. If you dodge, you will go into a slow sequence. Let him punch you so you can get right back to doing damage to his arms again. The best way to avoid punches is to do your best to hit him with enough damage so he doesn't get the opportunity to do it. After ripping off his arms, you will now be on Temperantia's body. There will be 3 capsules on his body that you will need to break open. Sword, stiletto, and then bullet climax with the hands. Once the capsules on his body are broken apart, you will be in front of him. We start by instantly using a Yellow Moon Lollipop. Yellow Moon Lollipops give invincibility, meaning that we won't be interrupted while doing our combos. Do 2 Durga exploits and then get rid of the rest of his health using the Shuraba sword. So that was Temperantia. Next up is Iustitia. The third boss fight can be found in Chapter 11, the Cardinal Virtue of Justice. For Iustitia's boss fight, you are going to be using the sword for everything. So as long as you have the sword in your hands, that's all you need. When the fight starts, get up close to the head and start using Shuraba slashes. After the damage is done, get on top of the head and run in panther form up to the face. One thing I like to do is wiggle the camera joystick from left to right, since the camera going up can be very wonky. Make sure to dodge the oncoming blades. Use more upward slashes with the sword when arriving to the face to cut off the tongue. Each time you cut off the tongue and go back to the platform, you want to run off the side so you can get back to fighting ASAP. If you don't fall off to the side, you will just be standing there waiting for Iustitia to break the platform for you anyway, so run off so you can return to attacking. If the boss vomits a plant, break it. Those plants are awful and will screw you over. If Iustitia breaks the platform, run to the platform on the right. Besides these things, the main points are to try and stay in front of the face to slash the face as much as possible, and just to watch out for the other moves Iustitia can do. After Iustitia, we now have Sapientia. The fourth boss can be found in Chapter 13, the Cardinal Virtue of Prudence. For Sapientia's boss fight as well, the weapon you will just be using is the sword. On each of Sapientia's legs, he will have these porcelain faces. Use a punch-kick-punch combo with the sword to hit the faces on his legs. After destroying 2 of them, Sapientia will dive. While under the water, he will try to bite, so make sure to avoid him by dodging. After he comes back from his dive, hit the other faces on the opposite legs and climax. For this next part, you will just need to make sure to direct Sapientia towards the spider. There will be some prompts, so make sure you don't miss them because you will lose a lot of time if you do. After Sapientia's face is exposed, you want to use the upward Shuraba slashes to his face. He will dive once more soon after, and then when he returns back, use the Shuraba more until you receive a second climax prompt. Sapientia can decide to dive multiple times or even at the beginning of the fight. You hope that this does not happen. For phase 3, use punch-kick-punch combos with the sword. When Sapientia pushes you away, use a Yellow Moon Lollipop and continue using punch-kick-punch combos. All bosses in the Bayonetta speedrun have an element of RNG. The final 2 boss fights are extremely RNG heavy. The next boss that we are going to discuss, which is the second last boss, is Boulder. The 5th boss fight is in Chapter 16, the Lumen Sage. For Boulder's fight, we are going to be using the same Durga exploit again that we previously used against Temperance. However, at this point in the speedrun, we will have the Kilgore rocket launchers on the feet. The exploit when wearing the Kilgore allows Bayonetta to shoot a lot of rocket launchers from her feet. We are also going to have an accessory called Celine's Light for this boss fight. When Bayonetta gets hit while wearing Celine's Light, Witch Time will activate, consuming a portion of the magic gauge. From Boulder, we are wanting a 3-hit combo from him. Witch Time can be activated from Celine's Light when hit by this combo, or when dodging the 3rd attack during this combo that he does. Boulder has a variety of moves, but that 3-hit combo is the only one we really want from him. The objective of his fight is get Witch Time, and then when in which time, use the Durga exploit with the Kilgore rocket launchers to erase his health. This needs to happen 3 times. If you want Bayonetta to get hit by one of Balder's attacks in this combo, one thing to take note of is that you will want to have a significant amount of magic gauge. You want at least 4 magic orbs ready. If he is deciding to stay away from you and will not come close to the platform, use the X button to shoot gunshots at him. This will hopefully aggravate him to come closer and to pull his shield up, to then give you the combo that you want. After erasing his health 3 times, Bayonetta will shoot her bullet and there will be glass in the air. Try to not hit the glass and direct the bullet into Balder's forehead. After Balder's fight, we now have the final boss, Jubelius. Jubelius' boss fight is in the final chapter of the speedrun, Epilogue Requiem. For Jubelius' boss fight, we are only going to be using the sword. The sequence of her attacks determines how fast or how slow this boss fight will be. When she receives a certain amount of damage, she will go into the next parts of her boss fight. She will start to summon different elements. For each element that she summons, you will need to hit the spheres on each of her hair strands. The first 2 elements Jubelius will summon are fire and ice, which are very similar and have a very similar path to which you hit the hair strands. The third elemental phase though is the worst. It is a storm phase where Jubelius will be in the center with her hair strands attached to the platforms around her. You want to start by going to the left. This phase is tricky because you need to get jump prompts to jump on smaller stone platforms that are moving to reach and hit each of her hair strands. You need to be aware of which platform you jump on and to not stay on the platform for too long, as Jubelius will summon lightning strikes to break them. For some platforms, you will need to wait a slight moment in order to jump onto them. You need to be aware of which platform you jump on because you might get a prompt and think you are jumping to one platform, but you might end up jumping to another. Jubelius can do a variety of different moves when not in an elemental phase. She can do a punch, a frisbee move, she can put her hair strands on the floor, and she can do an incredibly awful vortex move. If Jubelius decides to do a punch, dodge the 3rd punch to get witch time and then do upwards Shuraba slashes to her arm. If Jubelius decides to do a frisbee move, stay still and let the frisbees hit you. The reason why is because if you let them hit you, she will do the punch attack. If she puts her hair strands on the floor, I like to run up to them and then do a stiletto slash to each one. If Jubelius decides to do a vortex, all you can do is run away. This move is one you definitely do not want in your runs because it is time loss. That's pretty much the whole boss fight, there's just a few extra things. Bayonetta will create a walkway with her hair, run up the hair to reach Jubelius' face and hit her in the face with Shuraba slashes. After the final climax, you'll be sending Jubelius to the sun. Make sure not to hit any of the planets because you will lose a lot of time if you do. Once Jubelius is hit into the sun, you will have to break up the body parts. Take a note of the lock-on points on each of the body parts as to where you want to hit the body. You want to take a note of this because if you don't hit at the lock-on point, the body part might not break. And that's all the bosses I'll be discussing in this video. I hope that it can be helpful and give you some basic information on how to do the boss fights for the speedrun. If you would like to learn more or have any questions, feel free to leave a comment on the video below and to join the Bayonetta Speedrunning Discord, which will be linked in the description. Thank you for watching, take care and good luck.